Four Americans, two opposite ends of the political spectrum, one terminal diagnosis. Can we save the patient, or is it too late? Listen in as we diagnose political malpractice.
On episode 1, Anatomy of a Failed State, our co-hosts got into a heavy discussion related to education that was worthy of its own breakout post. Here is that post.
Well, I don't know. I live down in the South, and I'm going to tell you down here, that's not how it is, okay?
But
Because
there's
these
echo
people,
chambers. There's echo chambers.
no. There's some real deep hate living these
There
people's
is.
hearts.
There is deep hate.
Not something I
But-
could ever muster, so no. I
But
don't agree with that one.
that deep hate is stoked by the climate right now. I have never fought so much on social media. I have never dug into somebody's profile when they're making some nasty comment about women and with glee screenshotted that their status was divorced, went back to their hate post and just posted that screenshot and said, yeah, it fits, and walked on. I never did that. I never did that until this last political cycle. You know, I have to ground myself from my personal social media because I get angry.
I had to do the same because I had a high school teacher one of my high school teachers who I loved in high school, tell me that all black children that she taught did not work as hard as white children. And I cannot believe that. It actually hurt my heart so much because, right, it was gross shit, first of all. And excuse my language, I was not going to cuss on here, but my child is biracial. And I could not imagine someone automatically labeling him as incompetent without listening to him. Now, mind you, I was a complete awful child. I'm talking, I was in the criminal justice system. I was being sent every which way. I didn't belong in a classroom, nor do I belong in a doctorate degree based on the childhood that I had. But that teacher specifically actually helped me get into college. It breaks my heart to believe that she didn't afford the same to a child that was black because they were struggling because they were bad, but I was struggling because I had things that were going on at home. Could you not imagine that black child had something going on at home? Or you just didn't even care to listen to understand. You listened to judge because you wouldn't look deeper because of the color of their skin, and that is disgusting.
And
You know, that actually really reminds me of something, Candace. Rush Limbaugh used to talk about, what was it, the bigotry of low expectations. And I think this is kind of funny because he was talking about it in the sense of the left having low expectations of minorities, Black people in particular. I remember this conversation that he had. And even when I was a Democrat, I'd listen to Rush Limbaugh because I wanted to hear what the other side had to say, so to speak. And it sounds to me like you were dealing with someone who probably would have identified herself as conservative, but at the same time was also engaging in the bigotry of low expectations as well. That's pretty bad when Black people are dealing with that type of shit from both sides, really.
and
Right.
hold on, because I got to speak to that. I know I was trying to wrap this up, but that I've got to speak to. I can't let that hang. So Rush Limbaugh is and I know Candace might not know who he is because we're all old, and Rush Limbaugh is an old person thing.
Yes.
But he is a master twister, right? There is a big difference between recognizing that someone comes from a lower socioeconomic situation, regardless of color,
Yeah.
and recognizing that, you know what, this person does not have the support that the person from the higher socioeconomic situation does. They don't have the same luxury of time. And I think he twisted the understanding that there are in this country a majority of Black and brown people who are coming from this lower socioeconomic situation. And it's not bigotry and a low expectation. It's an understanding that you don't have the same luxury of time as the wealthy white, black, brown, or Asian kid
Right.
that sits right next to you. So it's not a low expectation. It's an understanding that grace needs to be given. Were
Well,
you
I,
able to
I
get your homework done? No. Why? Mom and dad couldn't pick you up on time because they had to work job number two. So it's not a low expectation, and I don't expect you to turn in your homework. It's grace. I'm going to give you an extra day because I understand mom and dad couldn't pick you up on time. So you had to sit and wait for them to get off job number two. And I think that was what was left out of Rush Limbaugh's rash
oh,
judgment.
for sure. But I'm just saying that I also am married to someone who has been in education the entire time that we've been together. And I do know that, what Rush was talking about is actually something that is put into, you know, um, into policy. I
I
mean,
agree with you on that. I do think it is.
and I think that it is put into policy to the point that even black and brown children who don't necessarily need that extra help get it anyway because they just don't expect anything of them. And I think that but I'm not saying that Rush Limbaugh is like some sort of saint. In fact, I hated the man. I mean, the only reason I brought that up is that it's just actually, if anything, let me put it this way to you, Sasha. It was interesting to me that he brought up the bigotry of low expectations when his own side was also engaging in it. That was the greater point that I was actually trying to make.
As
I,
long as you stress that.
I agree with that both sides actually
Mm.
engage in that. However, I will say I came from an extremely low socioeconomic class, the bottom of the barrel. And I could imagine, now I don't know this to be true. My husband is biracial. Again, we're in a biracial marriage and he is a black man, but he did not come from the same low socioeconomic class that I did. I was raised poor and I would say he was raised middle class. And he had an expectation. They expected him to do well because that is what they were able to provide for him. My parents, on the other end, it was the exact opposite. So for me, it was you can't go to college. You don't need to go to college. College is not an option, and going to college is stupid. Whereas my husband was supported in going to college, even though he is of a different race, it was a socioeconomic status that it wasn't affordable, it wasn't possible. We didn't have the time, we didn't have the money, the resources, anything like that. And and still in the end, he went to college and left. I went to college and gritted it the heck out. I put my foot down and said, no, what I came from is not where I will be. It's not where I will end up. And now my son, who is of a different race than me, will have that high expectation because mom didn't let up. But could you imagine, race out of it? Could you imagine that most parents in similar situations as mine, now I was raised by a meth addict and a recovering addict, didn't have that expectation or couldn't provide that expectation? But it's not fair for anyone on the outside to say their wealth, their body, their capability in school, even because I didn't have the capability in school. So I know that other children may not. I went through a really traumatic childhood. I could imagine that other black or brown, even children that were white in those low socioeconomic areas could not have that expectation or even the resources provided. So their parents said something similar. I don't give a damn about that homework. I don't got time to look over that homework. I just got off work. Do you want food or do you want me to go over your homework? And so then they start to not ask. It's a system of depression within oneself and within their family roles that goes larger than race. So if you take it and you put it at that 30,000 view right there and you zoom it in, no teacher should ever say in any way or even have that implicit bias because they weren't trained. Because if they were trained on that compassion, on that grace, then she would have never said, that black child didn't care as much as you cared. Because I didn't give a damn. I promise you I didn't give a damn. And she still gave me grace. Why? Not them. The color of their skin. It's implicit racism. I mean, it's just what it is. And it still exists. And people disregard it entirely.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was talking about, and that's why I brought up the Rush Limbaugh thing. I mean, it was interesting that you expanded on it, Sasha, but I actually had a different intention, which was that he talked about the bigotry of low expectations, but here. That's why I said this was probably a conservative teacher, and yet she was also engaging in the bigotry of low expectations. I think that there's a lot of that goes around. Like I said, my husband has been in education for 20 plus years now, and anyway, he knows this stuff very well, and I see a lot of bad things happening, really, from the influence of both sides. When it comes to this, it's like the instant, like, oh well, especially in his school district, it's like, oh, you're Hispanic, so we must give you all this extra help or something like that, and it's like, oh, forget about your homework, whatever, turn it in when you can, blah, 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 all this type of stuff. And the thing that I see from that, yes, you can certainly extend grace from time to time, but as someone who also grew up in a very poor family, both parents worked, my dad was almost always gone. I never saw my dad through most of my childhood. um you know uh my mom was still able to make some time to make sure to educate me and give me that little extra boost that I needed. And so I don't think it's asking that much of parents to be able to do that sort of stuff. But
But that is
that's
actually asking too much. You think a meth addict can teach me
well,
something?
not a meth addict. I'm just talking
Well,
about I
but
I'm
you're
talking about
broadcasting parents. You can't expect of parents because guess what? Those parents won't provide. And if
well,
your husband
I'm talking
you
about
know that.
I'm just talking about socioeconomic status as far as like, amount of money that you get and stuff. I'm not talking about the other
Well,
confounding factors that
money
could possibly
outside of
come
it.
in.
Well, that is why I was in that economic status. Your mom took the time for you. My mom was 15 when she had me.
Mhm.
Okay, she dropped out of school. You can't expect parents to do anything when it comes to a child's education because then guess what? Your parent taught you, my parent didn't. Therefore, you learn I didn't. Therefore, we start the race, but you're 10 steps ahead of me.
Well, but listen to what I'm getting ready to say here, though. The thing is that there are also lots of those black. What I was getting ready to say is there's also a lot of those black and brown parents who probably do the exact same thing as my mother did, and I do have to wonder how many of them are being, I don't know, treated differently to a lower standard just because of their race. And that's the type of thing that I'm talking about there, because I have just, heard enough about it that it just kind of makes me wonder if that's happening. And that's unfortunate, because I mean, people do need something to work toward, and
Right? Come
that's,
in. I'm going to come in and I'm going to ring the referee bell. Ding, 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 ding.
yeah.
This is a whole topic in and of itself that does tie into shutting down of the Department of Education. That it and the supposed
I'll go for a mile a
return of
minute about
education to the states when again, people don't understand the hierarchy. What is the Department of Education? How does it interplay with states and school districts and state mandates? So we are going to ding, ding, ding the referee bell on that. Everybody take your notes, because that will be an episode that we are going to dig into, because there is debatable topics on both sides.
Now, I'll
You
sell
know?
the Republican Party to Candace on this issue. I think this is the perfect time to talk about school choice. So if they didn't like the teacher saying that, just why didn't you go to a different class or a different school, or was
She
that
said that
opportunity available?
recently, and she's no longer a teacher anymore.
Oh,
That
that's-
was recently during this
That's a good
political.
result, yeah. Because I
So-
think if that happens, then just go to another school.
And school choice fits in there too.
The
Hold
bus.
on.
Chrissy
Ding,
wanted
ding,
me,
ding.
wanted my meth addict dad
Ding,
to
ding.
drive me down the road.
Ding, ding, ding. Next episode, I guess we're talking about education.
So many kids were in the same situation as me.
Ding, ding. We
All
are
right.
talking about education. Next episode. Ding, ding. All right. Great little wrap up here that opened a segue into next episode. Next episode, I guess we're talking about education. So, if you guys are listeners out there, give us a listen if you want a second opinion or you just want something to rage about. Any MAGAs that happen to come across, hit subscribe. You can go and gripe about Candace and I and how dumb the Democrats are. Any super left liberals, hit subscribe. I'm sure you guys can gripe and moan and be thankful that you're not happy in Missouri also. Okay? It's a good place for us to talk about these discussions. Nobody's ever going to really win this debate. It's just putting out their personal perspectives on what's going on and really dig
That's
into
true.
it.
That's
All right? We will see you in next week's episode.
If you want a second opinion or just something to rage about, hit that button and subscribe. This has been Political Malpractice.